Hi, y'all. I'm Lawyer Lee. My goal is to give you an overview of day two of the Alec Baldwin trial in 20 minutes or less. So let's go. Halyna Hutchins was shot and killed on the set of Rust. Actor Alec Baldwin was holding the weapon that killed Halyna Hutchins, and he's now on trial in a Santa Fe, New Mexico courtroom, charged with involuntary manslaughter. So today we started with Marissa Popple, the crime scene technician for Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. Now, Alec Baldwin has several key arguments. One of them that the gun fired even though he had not touched the trigger. His team is trying to walk back from those claims. They tried to do that in opening statements, but he did make that claim and he made it on national television. So it's out there. Secondly, no live bullets were supposed to be on the set at all, Alec Baldwin says. So the whole purpose of that being so he could focus on his role as an actor. So all of the actors could focus on their roles. There were never supposed to be live bullets. So somebody, and no one claims it was Baldwin, brought live bullets onto the set when they should never have been there and loaded them into the gun that was given to Alec Baldwin. He was using that gun as a prop in the filming. Third argument he has is that law enforcement did a poor investigation. They didn't look everywhere they should have or as fast as they should have. Fourth big argument is that live bullets look a whole lot like dummy ones, and anybody could get those mixed up. So crime scene tech Popple sent the weapon that he had been using to the FBI for fingerprint analysis and also for firearms functioning testing. But when the FBI returned the gun to her, it looked like it had been taken apart and put back together. There was one internal piece that was in a baggie separate from the rest of the gun. So she would not go so far as to say that the gun was destroyed, but she had to admit that it was broken when the FBI sent it back to her. And Alec Baldwin believes that prevented him from testing or doing analysis on the gun. Baldwin's lawyers also pointed out that law enforcement never seriously pursued the idea that someone sabotaged the set, which Baldwin thinks could have happened. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
The idea came up early in the investigation that what if somebody sabotaged the set and put those live rounds there? Do you recall that?
Yes.
And that was quickly dismissed in this case as not something that law enforcement thought to be realistic. Fair?
Yes.
Of huge concern, when Popple investigated the scene, she found 5 more live rounds and 1 spent casing. There weren't supposed to be any live rounds there. These live rounds were mixed with dummy bullets on a prop cart. They were inside a munition box, and they were in bandoliers for Baldwin and for another actor, Jensen Ackles. Here's some of the testimony.
And what's this a picture of?
These were some of the rounds that were located loose on top of the cart.
And these live rounds being loose on top of the cart, I mean, you don't know whether those live rounds were there at the time of the incident, right?
Correct.
And again, these were all Starline brass, nickel primer live, correct?
Yes.
And you were also not certain at times when you would collect rounds whether or not they were live or dummies.
Correct.
Some rounds you submitted to the FBI to process to figure that out.
Yes.
And when you looked inside of that box, States Exhibit 17, what did you find?
These were the rounds inside of the box.
And can you tell the jury the significance of that round?
Yes. This round with the silver primer was a live round.
But you don't know whether somebody was rifling through this box and just missed one, do you?
No.
And you also showed the jury that these Starline brass nickel live rounds were found in other places on the set, right? This is States Exhibit 16.
Yes.
And what is this?
This is a close-up of one of the...
They come and fix the arrow in a minute. The arrow really ought to be going to the middle bullet with the silver dot.
The gun holsters that has a live round in it.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 15?
This is a close-up of the gun holster that was belonging to Mr. Baldwin that has a live round in it.
And was then 15, this is 15. Was 16 the one that was the other actor, Jason Eccles?
Yes.
And that's where they fix the arrow. While law enforcement did not find live bullets in the prop truck, they found them in the other 5 places you just heard about. They did take an entire week to get around to searching the prop truck. They got a warrant to search the church the same day that Halyna Hutchins was shot and executed it the very next day, but they waited to get a warrant for the prop truck. So the defense thinks that's another issue in its favor. The defense also talked about the fact that the live rounds look extremely similar to the dummy ones. The only difference is that the live rounds have a silver dot on the bottom, as you just saw, instead of a bronze or a gold one.
Working theory, as you evaluated the ammunition and looked at the similarity between the Starline nickel live and the Starline nickel dummies, is that they could have been easily commingled. Fair?
Yes.
In other words, somebody could have mistaken one for the other, right?
Yes.
The defense also introduced the idea that maybe there was someone else, a man named Seth Kinney, who introduced the live bullets to the set. Kinney supplied the firearms and ammunition to the Rust production. Oddly, law enforcement allowed him to help them when they searched the prop truck.
You know that if Seth Kenny provided the live ammunition to the set, that's worse for Seth Kenny, right?
It's worse for whoever provided it, yes.
I agree. So, but as members of law enforcement, you all know that the person who provided that would have a motive to not be found, true?
Yes.
So you headed to execute a search warrant at Seth Kenny's prop house, right?
Yes.
And there was a witness there that day that assisted law enforcement with the search of the prop truck, right?
Yes.
A man named Seth Kenny.
Correct.
And not only did he assist, he actually was the one that opened the safe, right?
Yes, he had the combination too.
And
So when police finally searched the prop truck, they found no live ammo, but they did find one half-empty box of ammo that was different from the others. Instead of a stamp on it, it had a label handwritten by Seth Kinney.
inside the prop truck, there were boxes, right?
Yes.
Boxes of ammunition.
Correct.
And these boxes are sort of, a lot of them are the same shape, make, model, white box, right?
Yes.
And I'm just going to show you 816, which is a close-up. And do you notice one box that looks a little different than the other boxes?
Yes, there is.
And which box is that?
The box in the center, instead of it being stamped, it has handwritten in blue marker, dummy rounds 45 LC.
Right, and I'll just blow up that, which is in State's Exhibits, Exhibit 19, right?
Yes.
And you don't know who wrote that writing on it, do you?
Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who is the armorer who has already been convicted and sentenced to 18 months for her role, sued PDQ Arm and Prop that was owned by Seth Kinney, saying that Kinney had sold her a box of dummies with live bullets mixed in.
Was there any live ammunition on the prop truck?
No.
So I want to ask you something, Investigator Popple. Did that surprise you?
No, not necessarily.
Well, you've got all this, you're finding these live rounds all over the set, right?
Yes.
Sort of seem to be a little bit of everywhere without much cohesion between where you're finding them, right?
Yes.
And they're housed originally in the prop truck, right?
Yes.
And so you go a week later to the prop truck, which has all the ammunition, right?
Yes.
And there's not a single live round there, right?
Correct.
Why did law enforcement wait a week to go to the prop truck?
The search warrant needed to be written. I'm not sure of why the time difference occurred exactly.
So law enforcement also did not look for surveillance video, the defense pointed out, although it wasn't really actually clear, in my view, whether there was any to be found. So where did those live rounds come from that were found on the set there at Rust, and one of which actually killed Halyna Hutchins? Two witnesses, Marissa Popple and Corporal Alexandre Hancock, a detective with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, said that they concluded that the person who brought the live rounds onto the set was Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer. They did not believe it was Seth Kinney. I was a little surprised, frankly, that they were allowed to give an opinion about that, because it seemed like exactly the sort of fact that a jury would need to make its own conclusion about. Corporal Alexandre Hancock did acknowledge that Hannah Gutierrez Reed claimed no live ammo is ever kept on set. But the defense asked the witnesses about bullets that were turned into the police after Hannah Gutierrez Reed was convicted by a close friend. And those bullets were not available during Hannah Gutierrez Reed's trial. We'll learn more about those as the trial goes on. Baldwin also argues that he was simply following role, his duty as an actor when he was holding, using, and handling the gun. His role wasn't to make sure that there was no bullet in it. His role was to make it look real as an actor. And that's why other people are assigned with the task of making sure there's never any live ammunition in a gun handed to an actor on set. At the scene, one of the witnesses found a document describing how Alec Baldwin was supposed to act during the shoot. And he was told, the thumb cocks the firearm. He says, that's what I did. And he says that's when the gun fired, that he never actually pulled the trigger. The prosecution went after the claim that the gun fired on its own when he cocked it, without him actually pulling the trigger. They brought in Alessandro Pieta, the Italian manufacturer of the gun that Alec Baldwin was using. Pieta said they had quality controls and that the gun would not have fired without Baldwin pulling the trigger. He had to admit, though, that he had not physically seen the gun since 2018, 3 years before Halyna Hutchins was shot. The prosecution also put up Justin Neal, who imports and distributes guns for Alessandro Pieta Firearms. He said he'd not ever heard of that model gun misfiring. And he said he never received a call complaining about that gun model shooting on its own. Now, the prosecution did win an important evidentiary issue today. They wanted to put in a phone call that Baldwin made after the shooting. On the phone call, he asked the police if he could go home, even though two people were in the hospital. And he also talked to his wife and asked her to bring the family out to see him, saying they would have fun if she came out. Now, the prosecution believes that just goes to show how heartless he was. And the defense thinks, who cares? It's totally irrelevant. It's irrelevant to an involuntary manslaughter charge. But the judge said the defense made it relevant by asking the very first witness out of the gate, Officer LaFleur, to talk about how upset Alec was at the scene while he was there just following the shooting. The judge decided to allow testimony about Baldwin's demeanor after the shooting, as well as a statement he made that blanks can kill. So we'll have that to look forward to in the coming days. If you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button and subscribe for more.